Hello, good afternoon, greetings. This is Ayya Phalanyani speaking from Germany, Aninja Vihara. I'm happy to see you and would love to start with Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Buddhang Dhammang Sanghang Namasami. Yes, more people joining in for today's Wednesday talk. I'm happy to see you, happy to greet you and extend my blessings to all of you. May you, wherever you are, be well. So, today I think we shall speak about Moha. Moha, the Pali word in English, means such as ignorance, confusion, maybe also not knowing, not being able to understand or grasp. Moha is something that we can take as something that gives us a brain fog. So very important for me presently, because still having a lot of brain fog. It's going better some days, others not. But yeah, it is something, maybe not a physical illness, but something that muddles our mind, that makes the mind obscure, that obscures the mind and has us not see the things as they really are, and to see what the things really are with wisdom. That is what the Buddha asks us. And I'm saying hello, Richard, Deborah, and all the others who are there. Happy to see you. So, moha, ignorance, confusion. And that should not be, it's not a synonym for avijja, although they depend on each other. You know, moha, ignorance, is one of the root causes of all of our disasters. There are the kilesa, greed, hatred, and delusion. This delusion is the moha that we are talking about. This delusion is what, in the end, in the dependent origination, makes avijja stand first. So moha is the cause for avijja. If we wouldn't have moha, so this delusion, we would not have avijja, not knowing. We would understand the Four Noble Truths, for example, among other things. Panya, wisdom, would arise within us. right away. But it doesn't. Unfortunately, no, it doesn't. Always there is this blockage, there is this moha in front of our minds, and makes us not see the things as they really are with wisdom. And not only that, it really makes that we can't see clearly at all. And the worst part of it is that we can't even perceive how much moha, how much delusion we have. So we're not knowing with what we're dealing with. There is this not knowing, not understanding, and it might be a huge part of what we perceive as ourselves and of what we make up ourselves, but it doesn't have, we don't have any idea of how bad that really is. And it is really bad, I can tell you. It is really disturbing. It is really making us blind for many things. So, moha is a mental factor, a cetasika, if you want to use the Pali word. And it is a state of our mind, or a quality of our mind. It's a mind state, if you wish, that is muddled. And this mind state of moha is really accompanying every unwholesome thing that we think and that we say and that we do. Therefore, it's quite important to look at it and try to find out what can we do to overcome it. So, one of the things that this delusion is making us have is, for example, views, ditthi. And that ditthi is, as when it is not right view, when it is not samadhi, then it is already straight away micchaditthi, the not accurate view, to avoid the judgment of wrong view. Miccha would be straight away the wrong view. But in that sense, all views that we have and that we cling to are views that we cling to and that we don't want to let go of. And thus, mainly, unless it would be the right understanding of the Four Noble Truth, for example, then, or of the true Dhamma, then it would be right away moha, grounded in moha, a result of our delusion. So this delusion, we put this micchaditthi, our views, in front of it. And these views obscure the bright sight, the capacity to see through things and to see as they really are. Since delusion obstructs our capacity to see clearly, to see through things. So I said in the beginning, this is something, the function of it is to, well, function, that's a technical term, but in the Abhidhamma it would be called, its function is to obscure, to make us not understand. And we really have to understand where it starts and how it goes. Where it starts is fairly easy said. You just look at the Paticca Samuppada, the chain of dependent origination, and there you have the great result of all the moha, of all the delusion. There you have avijja, ignorance, not knowing. And it's not the ignorance of somebody who ignores that there is a cat begging for food, or that there is whatever, something happening. That is not the ignorance that is meant here. The ignorance that we're talking of is an ignorance that results of not knowing, not understanding. So when nobody ever told you that, for example, taking away something that is not yours, that this is no good and is called stealing, and you do it, you take things away, not knowing that this shouldn't be done. Really, from the bottom of your heart, not understanding, not knowing that this is no good and this is leading to harm, then you would take something, and there is moha. There is the delusion that what you do might be okay. But it's not straight avijja. It's not ignorance of the knowledge, the common knowledge and understanding that taking what is not given is not right. So you might learn after you have taken something, and you might come to know that the people are being angry with you afterwards. And you might understand that it is harmful because you took something from somebody else took something from you. So you learn. And then by this learning and understanding, avijja and moha together become less. So we understand by this example that understanding and building up wisdom is something that can help us to first understand moha, delusion, and overcome it. And with the destruction of delusion and ignorance, we would build up so much wisdom, maybe, that we could overcome the other roots of unwholesomeness as well. But let's go a little bit deeper in those roots. So Moha, I mentioned, is one root cause of all unwholesomeness, and it is, every unwholesomeness is accompanied by this delusion. The delusion that it's okay, for example. Monks and nuns can be deluded and think, oh, well, if I break that rule, that wouldn't be too bad. I don't need to keep all the rules. Or in even the 5 rules, if you have taken the 5 precepts, and if you think, oh, well, drinking a glass of alcohol is not as bad, might turn out as a delusion one day, sooner or later. So the delusion has us in a position that we don't see how bad it really is. Let's construct a case so that I don't put the blame on anybody. If, for example, I would think I could break a rule, let's say that I could just go and earn some money, for example. So I think I'm a nun, but there's living on alms food or on alms, depending on other people. That's nothing good for me. I don't want it. I want to get what I want when I want it. So I need to go to work. And I'm taking this as an example because I'm far away from it. So this would not happen. So this is just an example, right? to have that clear. So, but let's assume, let's pretend I would think like that. Then this would be totally delusional, that this does not cause any harm to me, to the Sangha, to any bhikkhus and bhikkhunis. And my delusion in that sense would make me think, oh no, it's okay, I can do that. And whatever arises in our minds as idea, oh, I could do that. And when it is unwholesome in the slightest, it's moha, delusion at work. And it's, as I said, not very easy to see how it works. Because when we are doing what we are doing because we thought we were right, then we find reasons enough to say, oh yes, that's okay that I do it. Even most probably somebody like a Russian president thinks he's right by attacking and pulling into a war another country. And most probably he thinks even really he's right. I don't know. I can't imagine that to be true, but possibly there is so much delusion that really the assumption, oh, this is okay when I do it, is so strong that one goes ahead and does it. And this is one thing of delusion, that after we have our mind muddled and obscured, and we can't see clearly anymore what we are doing, we also have no ability over our to manage what we say and do. So you start to grasp the gravity of not the gravity, the graveness, the total disaster of not knowing, of delusion. And it really from the great hateful and disastrous and delusional idea of, okay, I could start a war and kind of make people and myself believe that's right. From that amount of high-level delusion to the very fine delusional ideas that we might have, thinking maybe something which we might not really presume as something very, very bad, but whether it is a real bad thing or just a tiny little thing, it's all delusion. The root of all is delusion. And that is not big or small. That is just present or not present. And when it's present and allows us to give rise to unwholesome thoughts, give rise to unwholesome speech, and rise to unwholesome actions, then we're straight into dukkha. We're full on in suffering. And with every single moment, we deepen our suffering because we create new suffering for later. So we can have delusion about the Four Noble Truths. We can have delusion about the past, about past existences. Some people say, I do not believe in karma. They don't need to believe in it, but you better say, I don't mind whether it's there or not, instead of saying, well, I don't believe, because there is karma, whether you like it or not, and whether you believe it or not, and whether you see it or not, you will have to deal with it one day. So if you can't see your past existences, for example, which would make you understand how karma works, because you could see it, you could just watch it as it unfold in your former existences or from other beings. That would be the abhinyas, the do you say magic? I don't think really magic, but this outer worldly, oh dear, how is it called in English? The abhinyas, the outer worldly knowledges, like seeing past existences or future existences. We don't need to have that to get rid of moha. But getting rid of moha would enable us possibly to see these things. Or whether we understand our past, or whether we try to see something in the future, that is both dwelling in the past, wanting to know the future, is also both delusion. It's delusional to want to know if you don't know. So, where leaves this room for us? Where are we then? Here, in the present. That's where we are. That's where we can see clearly. That's where to look. And that's where we find moha. That's where we find our delusions, and where we could uproot them, where we could also make an end to avijja, because we start to little by little understand what is going on. And really, to see how things start, this is where we set off, to see where it all started. And I said with avijja, and that as a result of moha. You remember the chain of 12 links of the dependent origination, avijja, pachaya sankhara. Sankhara is all that mental stuff that is going round in our heads. So, it is said, just because I just remember, it is said that moha is the root, like lobha and dosa, that would be greed and hatred, is moha, delusion, the root of all unwholesomeness. And oh, I think I'm back. So sorry for that inconvenience. Seems I'm back online. So this brings us even more to the point, because the Abhidhamma says that moha, so delusion, can only be with one. at the time of the others. So moha accompanies every unwholesomeness. May that be rooted in greed, or may that be rooted in hatred. So the Abhidhamma says moha can accompany only one at a time. So you can have a delusional hatred thought or a delusional greed thought. So if we look at that clearly, we understand when we look at our minds and see ourselves acting in the world, then we must understand that this can only mean that those moments are really, really short, because we always have wantings and likings and crave for things. And then we have hatred because we don't get it, for example. And this is always overwhelming us and coming from here and from there and grasping our hearts. And it's always accompanied by delusion. But it's either a thought of hatred or a thought of greed. And really, for me, this can only mean those, because I can see my heart. And when I see things there, it seems, when I'm not looking close enough, it seems, well, all unwholesomeness seems to be there at once, and there is greed and hatred. But when I look at it closely, then I see, oh, this is a moment of greed. Here is that wanting for the last piece of cake. And then maybe somebody comes right before me and takes it, and I have just dwelled in thoughts of how I would dwell and how nice that would be, that piece of cake, and how I would love it, and would have been dwelling in these thoughts of greed for that piece of cake, and then it's gone. Somebody took it, and in that instant, everything changes. Moha is jumping on hatred and working together with it. So, but that really was just a side note. What else can I talk about moha for you to really understand it? How important it is to let go of it. So all the things that we do when we break our rules, like you break your 5 rules, when you start to have a sexual misconduct, or you take something, or you lie, or you slander, or all these things that might not even occur to you as a really bad thing. When I was not ordained yet, I was loving to have a glass of wine and watching a sunset. And I thought, this is lovely. Now I understand, no, yeah, that was lovely. In fact, on one level, in one sense, but in I hope. Yes, our line disconnected. I'm sorry for this. Here I am again. I hope here the connection is a little bit better. Sorry for the inconvenience. Just moved a little bit closer to the internet station, but it's a little bit colder here, so I tried to stay warm. But okay, thank you for letting me know. So where were we with Moha? And I was just telling you the story that when I was not ordained yet, many years back, I was enjoying a glass of wine in the sunset. And at some point, the Buddha says, that's not what I say, but the Buddha said, you must leave the small pleasure behind for the larger joy. So when you start to find your joy in meditation, and when you learn to find joy in the meditation practice, then you wouldn't think anymore, a glass of wine in the sunset would be lovely. You would think sitting in one of the jhanas would be lovely. So I mentioned already, by the way, 2 ways of overcoming moha. And that is really important. That's why we practice. We shouldn't do it for the joy, but we should do it actually to overcome it. Not the joy, but moha. So, excuse me for the movements. Don't get seasick. So, I have mentioned earlier the part of building up wisdom. And that we do by doing vipassana meditation, by trying to see clearly. Vipassana is means nothing more actually than seeing clearly. And when we start to where we always come back to, when we start to observe the 4 satipatthana, our body, our feelings, our heart, mind, and the dhammas, or in that case the thoughts, then at one point we really can see moha, and we can see through by building up wisdom little by little, always a little bit more wisdom. And there ditthi comes into play again. The more we start to see clearly, we start to see the the 4 noble truths. And once we start to see the 4 noble truths and they're working, and when we start to see how the first noble truth, that there is dukkha, and that there is the seed of suffering in everything, Not everything is suffering, of course not. No, there's pleasure. But in this pleasure, there's already a root for suffering. My example for this is always like you have your phone with you, and when something is really nice, you take pictures because you don't want to lose the moment. You want to keep it. And that you can't keep it is delusion. And that we are attached and that we crave to the things being as we think they are, and have this wanting that they don't change and that they are always as I want them. That causes a lot of suffering. So even in the most pleasurable moment, it's highly likely that suffering will come soon. So we start to understand the Four Noble Truths. We start to understand when we start to see clearly that this craving really that we have, this thirst for things causes us to run after things and be averse to things. So seeing this is really the start of getting rid of Moha. And with the third noble truth, wisdom arises. There is the understanding, well, there is a way out of suffering. And that is not seeking the small pleasures like having a fancy car or having a glass of wine in a sunset or having many sexual partners or whatever. But to walk the Eightfold Noble Path, we start to understand that this is the way out of suffering. And then when we are at this point, we start to really appreciate what is going on, and we start to let go of our views, of our unwholesome thoughts and actions and deeds. There's a very interesting question. Is being attached to our relationships Moha? Yes, in a way. It's not all Moha. Maybe more things are coming together. But any attachment really is because it is unwholesome to be attached, would be accompanied by Moha. Now, the attachment to our to relationships can be very unwholesome or little unwholesome. if your attachment is of a nature that it is controlling the other, that it is not allowing somebody else to live their life, and if your attachment is limiting their radius of action, and when your attachment makes you think you are allowed to rule them and regulate them and bind them, then the more that is, the bigger, the higher is the amount of moha in it. When there is just a relationship and you let them free, you let them be, and they stay in a relationship with you because they choose to, not because they are so bound to you or you are suppressing them, then it is not, say, as bad at moha, but any attachment really is moha, accompanied by moha. In the end, we must understand that any relationship is anicca. It will one day fall apart, latest, and hopefully only late in life when one dies at old age. Facebook user says the second noble truth is very, very important. That is true. All the four noble truths are very, very important. If we get out of kama tanha, bhava tanha and vibhava tanha, then we reach nibbana. Am I right? Yes, you are right. But we're still talking about vipassana and how seeing clearly, seeing the noble truth, is finally getting us more and more out of moha, closer to nibbana. Because we overcome our views and we see through tanha, through that lust, that thirst of sensual pleasures. The other way, and that, if you ask me, is short term, is practicing samatha meditation. So if you practice for calmness and concentration, when you look at the suttas, all the suttas where the Buddha speaks about the jhanas, which comes first is that one has closed the sense doors, what we can do with vipassana meditation. Then comes the moment that you see the hindrances, the 5 hindrances, liking, disliking, distraction, drowsiness, and doubt. In short, I know that there are other translations for that. But so we then see those hindrances And most of the times, one is stronger than the others. So we usually have to deal with one of those hindrances the most. There are people who have a lot of doubt. There are people who have a lot of hatred towards themselves, towards the practice, towards everything they come across. They are people who are so greedy that they are attracted by everything and fascinated by everything. So this comes down to be then a hindrance in our meditation practice. And all those hindrances have a factor that counters them. So that helps us in our meditation practice. There is, for example, kama chanda, the craving for sense pleasures. There we have the one-pointedness that counters the sense pleasures. You know, there's the cake or your object of sense pleasures, and you concentrate on no, my nose. So you focus so much so that you don't see it. Concentration, so hard. But you manage not to get distracted by your sense pleasures when you concentrate a lot. Then ill will be countered by piti. So when you sit in meditation and are in your jhanas and feeling well, how can you feel ill will? This is dealt with. When you sit in the jhana, it can come afterwards, can come out again. So we have drowsiness and sleepiness or drowsiness, tina midha in Pali. So this is countered by Dhammavicaya, by having interest in things, by really investigating, not doing an analysis, but investigating. See these things work. See how they work, when they work. Investigation of things can really get away with your drowsiness. Of course, you need a little bit of energy, which is also a bojjhanga. These two are enlightenment factors. But they work against the hindrance of tina midha. Then we have udhacha kukucha, restlessness and remorse. I think it's mainly translated into English. And there, what we use there, sukha. Happiness, sukha, which is also arising in the jhanas. And doubt, you can counter with, how you say that in English? Vichara in English is sustained thought. I think Bhikkhu Bodhi is translating it. Vitaka and vichara, applied and sustained thought. So you have somewhat the capacity of applying your thoughts to one thing, to your meditation object, and see them and understand them and keep them there. Keep your mind stable with it. So once you came to a conclusion, you stay with that conclusion. And maybe you found the Buddha and the Buddha's teaching, and then some people, yeah, but this and that, but searching everywhere for the answer, whereas the answer is within their own hearts. They just need to stay there and apply their minds to seeing. Then it would become all clear. So these jhana factors, or are these not jhana factors? Some of them are jhana factors, but not all. So these factors would would work against the hindrances. And when you can diminish by this your hindrances, you can then again apply more seeing clearly deeper, further, wider, clearer. Because the hindrances are really not at work. For the time being, those factors are present within you. Even short after, they might be working. So that gives you some support in having the strength to looking deeper and to look within your own heart and mind at all the roots of lobha, dosa, and moha. So these two, vipassana and samatha, are the way out of moha and will make us see clearly, will make us that we break the chain and overcome avijja. So, but you have questions put here. Iris, people say that true love doesn't exist and no one can love another person forever. Only Buddha's love is true, as Buddha always be by our side and help us when we need it. Does true love really no longer exist anymore? Iris, I do not know if it ever existed as we in our deluded mind think it did. I do believe that a real, true, unmuddled, unselfish, unconditioned love is possible, and that would be metta. And the Buddha was known to have a lot of metta, a lot of loving kindness. And this love, or loving kindness, this metta, is still possible for us to experience, to live, to have, to dwell, to abide in. So, oh yes, true love does exist, but it's a work. It's nothing that comes flying by. Yeah, I've noticed a lot of people cry when their loved ones pass away, me included. I do the same, but we don't feel much suffering when someone not related to us dies. Is this due to Moha? Yes, Sud, that is due to Moha. Because we feel more attached, of course, to somebody who is related to us, and therefore it strikes us harder. But in fact, the death of the mosquito we might want to kill even has as much impact on the world as, say, the person that has died. Impact in the world. Maybe I should talk about that another time uh, later so that I don't sound cruel. But for a mosquito, their life is their whole one life, just as for a person. And just because we think different about a mosquito and a person that we have loved makes the difference in our reaction to when one or the other dies. Is Moha behind the growing trend of confirmation bias? I don't understand confirmation bias. I think it has become prevalent, especially online, where everyone has access to information that already supports and strengthens wrong and right view. Oh, yes, yes, yes. Oh, yes. A lot to do with that. Yes. Uh, the the internet, and that we find really everything in it, and everything that supports everything. Uh, so we have to go back to the example of having a nice glass of wine in the sunset. You will find things of support in it, and many knowledgeable people talking about it and supporting it and strengthen that this is right. Whereas I have now put in here into the internet uh, in support of no, this is no good. You shouldn't do that. Um, and Yes, because we make up our minds and want confirmation that I am right. That, of course, is a moha, and that gives rise to more moha. Bhikkhuni, I know up to third stages of meditation and trying to reach fourth stage of meditation, trying to stop respiration. If I got success, I hope I will get nirvana within this life. May that come true for you. I wish nibbana for everyone, not only for you, but for all who practice art. May they see nibbana in this very life. I don't sound cruel. That's good to know. Oh, as a Buddhist, as a Buddhist, I do not cry when someone died. Reason that person already born. Yes, I have noticed in Buddhist countries that really people do not cry that much when somebody dies. But still, they do die. Of course, they do die now. They do cry. So, before it's getting worse, I think it's time to wrap up. Many blessings to you. Be well, you all. Talk to you. Yeah, next week. Yeah, talk to you next week. Bye bye.